The mountain broke apart above us with a sound like the world tearing its own throat, and I felt the pass give way before I saw it. One breath, the Coldwater Trail was solid stone and old snow. The next, the whole white shoulder of the peak came down, swallowing the caravan behind me, wagons, wolves, the youngest of my scouts, in a roar that buried their cries. I threw myself sideways as the wave of it took the trail, and the last thing I saw before the snow closed over me was a small figure on the far bank of the river, running toward the disaster instead of away. I clawed upward through the dark, lungs screaming, and broke the surface of the snow into a cold blue light. Half my people were gone beneath it. I am Kalen Vareth, Alpha King of the Iron Pine, and I had led 40 of my own into Coldwater Pass, believing the mountain would hold for us as it holds for no one else. It had not. I could hear them under the snow, muffled, fading, and I could not reach them all, though I tore at the drifts until my palms ran red. Then she was there, the small figure from the far bank, a woman in a threadbare gray cloak, throwing herself onto the snowfield with nothing but her bare hands. She did not ask who we were. She did not ask what we could pay. She dropped to her knees where a wagon had gone under and began to dig fast, certain, her breath ragged in the cold, as though she had done this 100 times and expected to do it 100 more. "There, the mound that steams," she called to me, not knowing me for a king, ordering me as she would any hand strong enough to help. "Breath melts the snow above the living. Dig where it steams." And she was right. I tore into the place she named and found one of my scouts curled around her own arms, blue-lipped but breathing. I pulled her free, and the woman was already 3 paces on, digging for the next, reading the ruined slope like a page she alone could see. We worked until the light thinned toward dusk. She knew the mountain the way I know my own heartbeat, where the snow lay soft over the living and hard over the stone, which silences meant granite, and which meant a wolf still drawing breath beneath. She sent me to the right places and dug the rest herself, sleeves soaked black, fingers split and bleeding, and she never once slowed to spare them. By the time the blue cold deepened, we had 11 of my people laid gasping on the riverbank who would otherwise be dead in the dark. She had named none of them and saved them all. I learned her name only because I asked it twice. Maren. She kept the crossing at Coldwater, the rope ferry, and the swaying bridge the packs used to cross the River Sable when the high passes closed. They paid her in scraps and rarely thanked her. She was only the woman who pulled the ropes, barely counted by the great packs who trod her board season after season. She lived alone in a stone hut no larger than my wardrobe, and she had just given me back 11 lives without once asking my name in trade. There was something in the way she moved that pulled at me, some old thing I could not name. For most of my life I had carried a memory I could not fill. A river, black water, a child's hands closing on my collar and hauling me up into the light. I had been a boy of 12, thrown into the Sable by a spring flood, drowning, certain of it, and then not drowning, because a girl had waded in after me and dragged me to the stones and pressed the water from my chest and vanished before I could open my eyes to thank her. I had searched for her ever since. 20 winters I had searched, riders sent the length of the river, gold offered, anything offered, to any who could name the girl who gave me back my life and asked for nothing. In time even I had come to believe she was only a fever dream of a drowning boy. My wolf never believed it. He had kept the memory like a banked ember through 20 cold years, refusing to let it die, waiting for a thing he could not explain. Maren turned to wring the snow from her cloak, and the sleeve fell back from her wrist, and I saw it. A scar, old and pale, curved like a hook across the inside of her forearm. The very mark the flood-broken bridge nail had torn into the arm of the girl who saved me, the wound I had watched bleed into the black water while she held me up and would not let me sink. And something in me turned over, not my wolf going still, the opposite of it. A certainty settled all through me like a key turning in a lock I had carried, unopened, for 20 years. It was her. Beneath the gray cloak and the split hands and the years, it had always been her. "It was you," I said, and my voice came out of me rough as gravel. She looked up, wary the way the barely counted learned to be wary of powerful men who suddenly look at them too closely. The Sable, the spring flood, a boy going under, and a girl who pulled him from it and ran before he could so much as thank her. I watched the color leave her face. "I have looked for you for 20 winters, Maren. I am that boy. I never once stopped looking." For a long moment she said nothing. Then quietly, "You were heavier than you looked. I thought you drowned proper before I ever got you to the stones." A small, broken laugh. "I never knew if you lived. I told myself you must have. I couldn't bear the other thought." She wrapped her arms about herself. I ran because I had nothing to give a boy in fine clothes, and I thought whoever saved a life like yours ought to be someone, and I was only the girl who worked the ropes. I crossed the snow to her and went down on one knee in it, so that for once she was not looking up at a man who towered over her. "You are the truest heart in these mountains, then," I said, "and you are the truest heart in them now. I have ruled 40 packs and crossed every river between the two seas, and I have never once met your equal. My people name me king. You are the reason there is a king to name. There is no debt in all the world large enough for it, so I will not insult you with one. I ask you something else instead." My wolf pressed against the inside of my ribs, not lunging, only certain, as certain as he had been on that riverbank 20 years gone. Fated mates are rare beyond telling. Most wolves live and die and never feel that pull even once. I had felt it from beneath black water as a half-drowned boy, and I had spent my whole life chasing the memory of it up and down a river. You are my fated mate, Moren. My wolf knew it when I was 12 and going under, and he has known nothing else in all the years since. I will not claim what is not freely given. But if you would have me, not the king, only the man you pulled from the river, then I am yours, and the truth is I have been yours for 20 winters already. She looked at me kneeling in the snow of a mountain that had nearly killed us both. This woman the packs had walked past for a lifetime, and I watched her understand that she had at last been truly seen. "Get up," she said, but her hand came out to me even as she said it, rough and scarred and warm. "Kings shouldn't kneel in the snow." I took her hand in both of mine, and the bond that had waited 20 winters settled between us at last, quiet and whole, like a door long jammed finally swinging home on its hinge. No thunder, no fire, only a deep and unmistakable rightness. I rose and drew her in, and she came, and for a while we simply stood in the blue cold with her cheek against my chest and my arms closed around her as though I could shield her from 20 years of going unthanked. I pressed my mouth to her hair and told her, low and plain, every true thing I had carried and never once been able to give the girl in the water. She wept a single time and let me hold her while she did, and then she was done with weeping and stood steadier than I have ever managed to stand in my life. My people had gathered on the riverbank while we stood there, the 11 she had dug from the snow with her bare hands, and the others who had learned by then whose hands those were. When Moren turned to face them, the whole of the iron pen went still, and then, without a word from me, they lowered their heads to her. Not to their king, to her. The wolves she had pulled from the dark pressed close and touched their brows to her scarred fingers, and the great packs who had crossed her bridge for a lifetime without seeing her would never again walk past her without knowing her name. We crossed her bridge together as the blue light gave way to the first warm gold of a clearing sky, and my people came behind us with their heads still bowed. 20 winters, I had searched the length of a river for a girl who ran before I could thank her. In the end, I never had to thank her at all. I had only to spend the rest of my days proving she had been right to save me. The ferry-woman of Coldwater, barely counted, walked into my hall a queen, and the mountain that had tried to bury us both held its silence behind us, as though it too had finally, at long last, learned to say her name.